The Yu-Gi-Oh anime has always had a complicated history with its dub. While it may have created some iconic moments and brought the show to a more mainstream audience, it did so by making a lot of changes to the original story, and sometimes drastic ones at that. From censoring death, torture, and anything that could be considered even a little inappropriate, to completely random changes like people's names, ages, or even what they're having. But sometimes, in their quest for family-friendly content, 4Kids slips up, and they accidentally end up creating something that, while not immediately noticeable, actually makes the series even darker than the original, and Yu-Gi-Oh is no exception to this. Not Duel Monsters, not GX, not even 5Ds. These three all got something that made them extra freaky. And if you want to get freaky, and if you want more freaky content like this, then please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell.
Looks like you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo. Oh, it's just down the street, next to the Chick-fil-A.
Now when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh censorship, I'd argue no series had it worse than the original. Changes were being made left and right seemingly with every episode. However, in one of the rare cases of something like this happening, something from the censored version became one of the most iconic things to come out of the franchise. That, of course, being the Shadow Realm. And honestly, how could you not find the concept of this cool? Because not only does it actually make sense from a story perspective, what with all the instances of people suddenly being transported to this weird, creepy void where nothing else seems to exist, but it also, like I've alluded to before, is a much scarier penalty for losing than death is. Because even if you die, there's still a chance of your soul ending up somewhere nice, because we know for a fact that there's an afterlife in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe. But being sent to the Shadow Realm, from what we've been told, is just an eternity of torture, pain, and misery. It's basically just HE double hockey sticks, and hell, it's used way more than just in situations with death. During Battle City, whenever one of the rare hunters would lose, Merrick would just mercilessly send them to the Shadow Realm, while in the sub, they were just knocked out. That's 4 casualties that absolutely did not need to happen. But you know what? I don't know if this is a controversial opinion anymore, but I actually love the way the Shadow Realm is used. It just kind of fits seamlessly into a world where dark magic is frequently used in various scenarios. As well, rescuing someone who's trapped in the Shadow Realm oddly sounds a lot more believable than bringing someone back from full-on death by winning a children's card game. Granted, did the dub use the Shadow Realm a little too much? You bet your star chips they did. Because while I believe there was a time and place for it to be used, sometimes they just went overboard. Like seriously, I understand the dark energy discs because having your legs be buzzsawed off creates a really gruesome mental picture, but a portal into the Shadow Realm opening up when you fall instead of, you know, just falling to your death? 4Kids, you guys were okay with implying death by flamethrower, being dragged to the bottom of the ocean, and being crushed by a shipping container, but not falling? What the hell, man? This is some early 2000s Yu-Gi-Oh deck consistency right here.
Max, what do you want for dinner?
Justice.
For Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, this example comes in Season 2, with the introduction of the character Aster, or Edo in the sub, and his backstory, regardless of which version, focuses a lot on his father. In the sub, Asters Dad, who was a card designer that worked for Pegasus, was murdered after Aster accidentally told a criminal named the D about a new powerful card his dad was making. However, in the dub, it was censored to where the dad, instead of being murdered, was instead kidnapped. Now this, in and of itself, is pretty commonplace for 4Kids, the swapping of murder and kidnapping. However, I believe in this case, they actually made it worse. Not because of the kidnapping itself, but because of what happened afterwards. Because you see, in the dub, Aster constantly brings up how he's going to someday find out what happened to his father. But the thing about that is, it actually happens. Aster's dad does actually show up in the story again, although it's not under the best of conditions. Because you see, the card that the D stole was Destiny Hero Plasma, a powerful card that was possessed by a sentient, interdimensional light that could steal the souls of anyone who had lost to it. And you want to guess who was the first person to be absorbed? That's right, good old Mr. Phoenix himself. And not only does Aster learn this from the D, who adopted him in order to avoid suspicion, but his dad's tortured soul literally appears in front of him. Now, in case you're wondering, Aster does eventually defeat the D and free his dad's soul. But just think about this for a second. Which of these sounds worse? Looking for your father's killer only to find their soul and have one more talk with him? Or spending a decade of your life hoping that he's alive to find out he's been dead and suffering the entire time. Suddenly, one goodbye, one conversation is not enough. The sheer shock that would cause someone is legitimately impossible for me to imagine. Even when I watched GX for the first time, which was in the dub, and I got to this episode, Aster immediately became my favorite character for a little, just because I felt so bad for him. But if you thought that was depressing, oh buddy, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Batman spells vengeance. Vengeance for Gotham!
Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds has always been one of the most consistently dark Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows, with the story focusing on things such as poverty, class divides, and gang violence, as well as being set in a city that was nearly destroyed by essentially a nuclear explosion, which might have also killed the OG cast, but we don't know for sure. Needless to say, it's grim. And what's even more grim is our third example, the Fate of Toby. Now, some of you might be asking, who the hell is Toby? Well, I don't blame you. Toby is a relatively minor character, and his only real connection to the series is his sister-turned-villain, Misty. And Misty's whole motivation kind of resembles that of Aster's, but instead of her father being murdered/kidnapped, it's her brother. And just like with Asters Dad, the dub explanation for where Toby is a hell of a lot more depressing than if he just died. You see, in both scenarios, Toby was being used and experimented on by Sayer, or Divine in the sub, a cult leader with psychic powers determined to use others like him in order to rule the world. Now in the sub, Toby ended up dying during Sayer's experiments, in which Sayer has absolutely no remorse at all. What a stand-up guy. But in the dub, Sayer actually reveals that Toby was sent to a secret location that's constantly moving around. So much so that even Sayer doesn't even know where he is. And it's not like they ever find him either. Neither Misty or Akiza are ever said to have found Toby, not even in like a passing comment, like, oh yeah, Misty's doing well, and I hear she found her brother, so that's great. No, it never happens. They legitimately just doomed an innocent guy to potentially being a human trafficking victim for the rest of his life while his sister just fails to find him. If that's not the definition of messed up, I don't know what is. In fact, this whole arc had a lot of really messed up moments. Oh look, a video talking about this arc in depth. That might be an entertaining watch, if you're interested, of course.